Good evening, N.
Where the hell have you been, 008?
What have I been doing, N? Oh, just the usual. Trying to save the world from crazed megalomaniacs and their devilish schemes to achieve global domination. Can you ask Q to have a look in his cupboard of gadgets? I need some tranquilizer gas, cunningly disguised as a can of hairspray.
Consider it done. Q, Rawnsley wants more toys to play with. Again.
David Cameron has refused to retract what he said about your comments about Muslims. He says they were stupid, they were divisive, and they were wrong. What's your response?
Well, number one, I'm not stupid, okay? I can tell you that right now. Just the opposite. Number two, in terms of divisive, I don't think I'm a divisive person. I'm a unifier. Unlike our president now, I'm a unifier. I'll say this. When I made the statement 6 months ago, and there was a clamor only by the politicians, millions of people were calling in saying, Donald Trump is right. You know that, and so do I.
Donald Trump, the man with the golden rug. Ah, Miss Green. I barely recognised you with your clothes on.
Usual formula, is it then? Cheesy one-liners, miraculous escapes, ludicrous stunts.
Yes, this film does contain some Boris Johnson.
This discussion is bedeviled by all sorts of artificial media twit storms and hysteria of one kind or another. There's a very good argument against the lack of democracy in the EU. Over the last 2,000 years, people have made repeated attempts to unify Europe by force. The EU is a very different project, but it is profoundly anti-democratic, and that's why we should vote leave on June 23rd.
Hold on a minute, Boris. You can't complain when people ask you about Hitler. It was you who brought the Nazi dictator into the European debate in the first place. Open the shark tank.
I find it deeply distressing. I don't really understand what Boris is up to, frankly. I mean, I know him, I like him, he makes me laugh. And yet, yesterday about Hitler, I find that deeply disturbing. I think the strain of the campaign is beginning to tell on him. I think his judgment is going.
The Tories' civil war on Europe is now more vicious than the blade in Rosa Klebb's shoe or the teeth on Jaws. Getting it under control will be beyond Her Majesty's top agent, never mind David Cameron. The Prime Minister tried to distract his party by dispatching the Queen down to Parliament to read out a legislative programme. Deal. Northern Powerhouse, anti-extremism bill, surveillance legislation, prison reform. That cocktail of already familiar ingredients left a few shaken, but not many stirred.
We will scrutinise carefully proposals to give prison governors more freedom. It seems the policies of this government have been to give greater freedoms to prisoners. That is, the consequences of overcrowding prisons and cutting 1/3 of dedicated prison officer positions. We welcome the proposals to give greater time for education and reform and to reduce reoffending rates.
I may be losing, but you know, diamonds are forever.
But don't last quite as long as a speech by the Labour leader. David Cameron responded by suggesting that his rival's days were numbered.
I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I think there's more chance of the Labour Party calling it a day when he completes his reign, but there we are. And, Mr. Speaker, I've been doing my researches too, and it may come a little sooner than people think. He recently placed an advert for a job in his office, and it said, and I quote, "Fixed-term contract for the period only that Jeremy Corbyn is the leader of the Labour Party, or until the 31st of December 2016, whichever is sooner."
Tempting fate a bit there was Mr. Cameron. If the Tory leader loses the referendum, he'll be the one fed to the piranhas.
You do know that some women think all you 00 agents are misogynistic anyway.
I'm very sensitive to that, Miss Green. I've been on my gender awareness training. But if you think the OOs are sexist dinosaurs, what about the henchman of UKIP #1, Nigel Farage? Did you catch Neil Hamilton insulting female Welsh nationalists?
These two ladies have just made themselves political concubines in Carwyn's harem. And what a gruesome prospect that must be.
I wouldn't exactly describe him as coalitious.
I don't suppose there's much danger of the Green Party bidding for world domination in the foreseeable future. This week, Natalie Bennett, their leader, announced that she was composting herself.
I went back to my proposals that I put forward when I stood for leader 4 years ago, and I said I wanted to grow the party, I wanted to make ourselves a truly national party, to win our place in the national debates, and I thought I've achieved those things.
Do you know what, Miranda? She has me converted. It's time to consider my carbon footprint, the exotic locations, the cars, the champagne, the caviar. To hell with it all. To hell with N2. Do you fancy a glass of carrot juice and a nut roast?
Oh, Andrew! But I might just keep the martini.